And the 3-1. Swing, a drive toward right center field, not deep. Moving on in is Jacob Young, closing, and he slides, and it's off his glove. Trickles away toward the infield. 2-run score. Okamoto at second, and it's 4-1 Blue Jays.
Dave Jagler yesterday on the call. The Nats had 2 shots with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 8th. Lyle struck out, and then, as you heard, Jacob Young popped out, and that was it. They lost a tough one to Toronto, 5-2, to drop them 2 games out of not only the 3rd spot in the wild card race, but also the 2nd spot, because Arizona and Philadelphia are tied for that 2nd spot. This from one of my very, very favorite guests and callers and listeners, G from the Shop. G from the Shop tweeted me, "Whenever Sheehan talks baseball, it always feels forced," with several laughing emojis attached. Good morning, everybody. Day 2 of training camp underway. Some good news on the injury front. I'll get to that shortly. I want you to start thinking about the following question. Name the top 3 players on the team. The 3 best players on the team. You can put them in order if you want, but I want the 3 best players on the team. I think 1 and 2 are easy. I think 3 is tough. So I look forward to some of those answers. You can start lining it up on the phones right now if you'd like at 301-230-0980. I got this from E. E in College Park writes, "You downplay training camp, and yet here you are every day doing most of your show on training camp. 4 hours of training camp radio a day." It's actually 3, E. I don't do 4 hours. I used to do 4 hours. Actually did 5 hours with Cooley for a year. It's only 4 hours. And then you do another 2 hours of a podcast. Appreciate the lug. I think that means the work. The podcast is not 2 hours long. It's usually between an hour and an hour and 25 minutes, something like that. It takes a little while to put together. That's true. It's actually not 4 and 2 hours of training camp content. But he writes 90% training camp, at least. And then you'll do special pregame and postgame shows for the preseason games. You are a treat, Kev. Love you. E in College Park. Yeah, I'm not a big training camp believer. I think that's the more important way to say it. I don't think we are gathering valuable information about our team from training camp practices and the people that play-by-play it, which bless their hearts because there's a market for it, so I understand why they're doing it. I don't think we gather much about our team in preseason games. But I do think that there are certain things that we can learn about our team. And I think some of that, if not the majority of it, comes from things they say. Like Dan Quinn said something yesterday that I will highlight. Ben and I talked about it at the end of the show yesterday, but I think it's important, and I think it is a tell on a key player, especially early in the season. I will get to that coming up. But yeah, no, I yesterday after the radio show, I dug for about 45 minutes into the internet, backing up to this time last year, just to read some of what was said about the team. I'll read you some of the quotes. The Commanders' this is a quote. "The Commanders' cornerback room is going to be a major area of strength this season." This is the next one I found. "Defense looks great. More blanket coverage by Sandra still. He also had an INT off a deflection." Well, that's nice. Big turnover for them in practice. Another one. "The defense is different. More speed and cohesion in the back end." Yeah, there was a lot of cohesion when we got to the regular season. "It looks built for turnovers." And then there was another one that said, great. I'm sorry?
Did I write that? Because that was me and Brian. Brian just shot me a look the second you said that.
It could have been you. I'm not going to identify because some of these people I know very well and I like a lot, and I don't blame them for observing and writing what they're saying because there is an audience for this.
Yeah,
I'm just proving that most of it tends to be really nothing super important about what your team's going to actually look like when it starts playing real games against real opponents, where tackling is part of the game because football actually includes having to tackle somebody to get them to the ground to end the play. They don't do that in training camp practice. I did like the more speed and cohesion in the back end. Let me just tell you, I copied and pasted without doing the names to this, but I did perhaps find one or two of yours in here. By the way, one or two of Denton's as well.
That makes me feel better.
A great connection between JD and Sinnott today. Ertz better be on his game. Like, look out, here comes Ben Sinnott. That didn't really materialize. But these are the best ones. I don't think they were the best ones, but they really turned out to be just a bit off. I haven't seen Matt Gay miss a kick yet. He's not being talked about enough. Then another one about Matt Gay. He's showing off his powerful leg, just made a few from 50-plus. Remember, he was 1 for 3 from 50-plus in the Green Bay game week 2. Ended up 4 for 9 with us before he got cut from 50-plus. If you recall, I think he missed 2 from 50-plus in the Madrid game, and then he was gone. Another one, the kicker Matt Gay is a huge upgrade. Good job, Adam Peters, AP. And then how about this one about the defense? Defense is night and day from last year. Joe Witt Jr. appears to have settled in. Look for big improvement for the defensive coordinator in his second year. I mean, let me just say, I found plenty that were also, somewhat clairvoyant, like in terms of it actually, they were right. Now, most of those were the obvious ones, like Tunsil is a beast. He just looks different than the rest of the O-line. The investment in protecting Jaden is already paying off. Now, it wasn't already paying off in training camp practices, but, those observations were spot on. There was another one. Actually, there were a lot of tweets this time last year about Lattimore. Lattimore's a baller. The cornerbacks are the best group on the roster after QBs. But then there was one, Lattimore doesn't look anywhere near Lattimore of New Orleans. And remember, there was, I think one of the things that I remember about last year, and I do this every year, very much is almost a PSA, like a public service announcement to say, just, enjoy it for what it is, but don't wager on it because most of it will be inaccurate or off by at least a bit. What I recall about last year more than anything was the conversation about the cornerbacks and the secondary in particular looking like the best unit on the team. As it turns out, it was one of the worst units on the team. A lot of discussion this time last year about the defense in general, and it turned out to be an absolute train wreck. At the same time, there were people like Ben Standig who literally either a couple of days before camp began or on the first day or second day of camp said, I don't think Brian Robinson Jr. is going to be on the final roster. That came out of nowhere. So there is information out there, and we have really good beat people who will tend to get some of that information. And I think you can also listen carefully to coaches and players in these pressers that they do and occasionally find a bit of information that you're like, I think he was being honest. I think he was trying to tell us something there. I think Dan Quinn said something yesterday that has been somewhat consistent going back to the off-season stuff, the OTAs and the minicamp. And at this point, and Ben and I talked about it briefly when he was on with me yesterday, but at this point, I think I would be a bit surprised if this doesn't actually hold up as he kind of was telling this to us beginning with the OTAs. I'll get to that coming up shortly. Real quickly, back to G. You really funny, and I love you dearly. No, the baseball conversation for me isn't forced right now. Sometimes there are, stories about our team over the last 5 or 6 years, a very bad baseball team for 6 years, as we know, post 2019. Now, the 2020 season, they couldn't lose 96 plus games because they didn't play 96 plus games. But over the last 5 years, they've lost, an average of 96 plus games. They were just bad. They finished in last place every single year since the World Series, with the exception of one, fifth place out of 5 teams in the National League East. But there have been various times where it's made sense to talk about the Nats. And some of it is, you're doing it for informational purposes and the passion isn't there. But I actually do like baseball. I've always liked baseball. I especially like baseball in the fall and as we approach this. And I'm a Nats fan, and I've been a Nats fan, and I want them to be good. And I think this season has been exciting. And I think, I'm not saying that from the very jump I was watching every game start to finish, because I wasn't. But more recently, yes. I mean, yesterday I had that game on from 1 o'clock on, and really wanted them to get a win against a Toronto team that had lost 8 of 11 coming in to Washington. That was a need-to-have game. I know that they've got another 53 games left, but at 55 and 53 yesterday, to move 3 games above 500, to stay still just a game back of not only the third wild card spot, but the second, this is building towards Monday and the trade deadline, and how Paul Taboni and company will treat the trade deadline. We've had multiple guests on the show over the last week talking about this trade deadline, and there is a general feeling that the performance in these games leading up to the trade deadline will be influential as to what they do. I would love to see them in some big games when we get to September. Yes, we'll be gearing up for the beginning of the NFL season. But, as an example, they've got a stretch in early September where they're at Dodger Stadium for 3, and then they're in San Diego for 3. Those games against the Padres could be huge. They have Philly late in the season at home, shortly after the Skins season opener, that week after. They end with Detroit and New York. So the Mets, that is. So that Mets series, it could come down to how they perform against the worst team in the division. So, look, this is not like flukish. The thing about the Nats at this point that I think everybody can agree on is after 109 games, they're actually this good offensively. I don't want to see this good offensively get traded away. They actually have pretty good starting pitching at the top of their rotation with Foster Griffin and Cade Cavalli. I'd like it to stay at least where it is. They've added Connolly early to the mix. Now, he's not ready to pitch, but he could be a third solid starter. And now all of a sudden, if you get in, you actually have a chance with that group. And I know that they're building for something much bigger down the road, but there are no guarantees with that. None. And I think that when you're a team like Washington, you're not the Dodgers, you're not the Red Sox, you're not the Yankees, you're not the big spending teams, and you have a season where everything seems to be coming together. There's one thing that is not coming together, and that's the bullpen, and it fell apart again yesterday. Schultz gave up 3 earned runs in just 2/3. Couldn't get anybody out, really. I mean, got 2 people out. That was it. So the bullpen was a problem again yesterday, as they gave up 3 in the top of the 8th when they were down 2-1, and all of a sudden they were down 5-1. They had a chance in the bottom of the 8th to make a run at it because they're that good offensively. But when you're a team like Washington, which really is, even though we're a big market, the way they operate is more mid-market, if not small market. I don't think you can turn away from these kinds of opportunities that are staring you in the face as you reach August. So, yeah, not forced at all, G. Really into this team right now and hoping that we've got some big games coming up. I like games, like real games, more than anything else with the teams that I root for, and the Nats are certainly one of them. They open up a 4-game set in Atlanta tonight against the Braves, and then they've got 4 in Philly. The 4 in Atlanta will take them through the weekend, and then you've got the trade deadline on Monday, August 3rd, and that's the night they'll open up with 4 against Philly. And by the way, the Phillies are right now in free fall. Bryce Harper calling for additions, saying that they've got to add some offense to the lineup right now, and that's with Schwarber, him, and everybody else. But they just got swept by the Marlins, who had lost like 12 or 13 in a row coming into that series. They've dropped 8 of 10. I mean, Washington's just 2 games behind the Phillies for second place in the division. Anyway, okay. So what Dan Quinn said yesterday that I thought was interesting, and Ben and I talked about it briefly when he was on at the end of the show yesterday. Actually, let me just update you real quickly on the injury news from yesterday, because I do think that the Nick Allegretti comments from Adam Peters and Dan Quinn on Tuesday night were significant. They were the most convicted of their statements. They clearly are big Nick Allegretti fans. And I think that the team in general, the offensive line room in general, are big Nick Allegretti fans. So this morning, because he left practice after Quinn had spoken before practice yesterday, we didn't get an update on Allegretti until this morning. From Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn said he suffered a strained calf. He said they are not overly concerned about it, close quote. He also said Trey Burks is going to sit out today with a sore foot, not a long-term issue. The one thing about Allegretti is just because they are confident in him at center, it doesn't mean they're going to be right. It just means that from our standpoint, this wasn't a wing it situation going into it. They knew what they were doing. They were confident in what they were doing. Again, they may not be right ultimately, but they were okay with Tyler Biadasz not being on this roster and Nick Allegretti replacing him. I mean, the things they said about Allegretti, smart, competitive, calm. You know, Quinn kept on talking about there's a leadership and a calm amongst chaos that is not something that you necessarily teach. I get that. But they got to be right. Because it doesn't appear as if they've got depth at that position. But then again, maybe Matt Gulbin is their depth. Maybe Julian Good-Jones is their depth. But it would be nice to really have a guy that they believe is a better communicator and a guy that's more high IQ at the position than maybe Biadasz was. The thing that Quinn said yesterday before practice, and he did speak today, and we'll have some of that sound before the end of the show as we continue to do a lot of training camp content on the show. Thank you, E. Corey Krosky-Merritt, about his potential to become a 3-down running back. This is something Ben asked Dan Quinn yesterday. And Quinn said he definitely has been, from the offseason, going through it. He's been digging into him on this stuff a bunch. The passing game, the return side, obviously the running skills. And then he gets into almost immediately, he's added 7 or 8 pounds of lean muscle since his offseason. So the work's been put in there. But then he goes right to Rachaad White. Almost immediately in that answer. He doesn't really necessarily answer Ben's question about Krosky-Merritt. But man, does he light up when he starts talking about Rachaad White. I'm excited for Rachaad to see what he can bring, especially in the passing game. He's got just great hands. And like you be around somebody who can catch and it's just soft hands. I know that's a term that we all use, but it's easy. It's catching and in the different spots. And one of the things as a running back, it's the run after catch. And if you were a running back in this system, it is good to play with Jaden. If a team's playing zone, Jaden's good enough to put it on the correct shoulder. So when the running back catches it, the run after catch is there, not just throwing to a spot. He just goes into his belief in Rachaad White. This is not new. We've been hearing Rachaad White over and over again since the offseason began, and now we're hearing it into training camp and the preseason. This would be a big surprise to me if the running back room is healthy throughout training camp. There aren't setbacks injury-wise, lost time, etc. It would be a surprise to me if any back gets more snaps early in the season than Rachaad White. Rachaad White is a little bit a part of the Netflix quarterback series, the Baker Mayfield part. He was, significant last year for Tampa. He had a good season last year in Tampa. He's a good player. I know that a lot of you, I remember when we signed him and I said, I kind of have always liked Rachaad White. I think he's a subtle runner, a subtle good vision runner. There's not a whole lot of flash. There's not a whole lot of major explosiveness, but he gets what's there and a little bit more than you should get. And he's a good vision runner between the tackles. And he's an excellent pass catcher. And apparently he's an excellent pass blocker. And going into a season with a new coordinator, in David Blau as a new coordinator and some new pieces everywhere, but it's going to be a new offense. I think they're going to feel much more comfortable with a veteran like Rachaad White in the backfield with Jaden, rather than a second-year player who wasn't necessarily, that effective as a pass blocker, that effective as a pass catcher. I think Krosky Merritt can catch passes, but Rachaad White is a soft hands catcher with great vision and the ability to make more than what is there, more consistently than not. And I think there's going to be a lot of trust and a lot of belief, and I think we're hearing that. We've been hearing it from Dan Quinn really since, March or whenever they first got together, April. That's right now, offensively, I'd be shocked if Rachaad White isn't out there for the first series or out there for the most snaps against the Eagles in week 1 on the road, against the Cowboys in week 2 on the road, against Seattle's defense in week 3 at home. They're going to feel much better with a veteran back there that has been through the wars, on the road for 2 big games to start the season, the noise, the picking up the right blocks, the catching the big 3rd and 6s out of the backfield, making somebody miss and getting the first down, which, by the way, Krosky Merritt did. Remember, he had a big play, catch and run on a 3rd and long against the Chargers last year. But every chance Dan Quinn's had to talk about Krosky Merritt and the running backs, Rachaad White, he can't wait to get to Rachaad White. So, yeah, that's what I am gaining real confidence on. And we've been talking about this for a few months. That's the stuff that's fun to kind of, we can be wrong. They could be head faking. He could be, not providing, a lot on Krosky Merritt because it's like deep down they're like, ooh, he is a different player. This guy's going to take the league by storm, and we don't want anybody to see it coming. That's a possibility too. Nobody saw Terry McLaurin coming in 2018. Nobody did. Jay Gruden did. The players in that building did. Nobody did covering the team or following the team because they basically kept him under wraps during the preseason. And then he exploded week 1 with Case Keenum at quarterback in Philadelphia. But I think this Rachaad White stuff is actually legit. All right. I want you to name the top 3 players on the team. You can put them in order if you want, 1 through 3, or you can just give me the 3 best players on the team. To me, the top 2 are easy. There are 2 obvious players that belong in the top 3 players group on this team right now. But number 3, I don't think is that easy. And that's what I'm interested in hearing. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. I'll give you mine. Max will give you his, and I want yours on phone lines next. All of our training camp discussion on the Team 980 is presented by Xfinity. Score the most reliable Wi-Fi, one price, 5 years, guaranteed. Xfinity. Imagine that. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Who are the top 3 players on our team's roster? I think the 2 best players on the roster are pretty obvious. Maybe you'll disagree. I think the interesting part of this conversation is looking at this roster with all of these new players and trying to come up with who the 3rd best player is on the team. So in no order necessarily, Jaden Daniels and Laramie Tunsil are the 2 best players on the football team. They're the 2 most talented. They're the 2 most productive. I know Jaden wasn't productive last year. And they're pretty much the only 2 that consistently get mentioned in, lists of the best players at their position. Terry doesn't really anymore. He's usually others receiving votes outside the top 15 in the receiver conversation. And they've added a lot of players, none of whom necessarily look to be superstars, but you never know. I have several players that I thought of for number 3. And by the way, for me, Jaden would be 1, Tunsil would be 2, if you're wondering how I would place them order-wise. Number 3 for me came down to guys like Chig, Owe, Chenal, Cosme, Connerly Jr., Kinlaw. There are a couple of others that I'm hoping develop into that, including Sonny Styles. But I went with Terry McLaurin as number 3.
Wow.
I bet you that is surprising to some of you, because some of you just equate me liking Terry a lot and not loving him as much as you do to me not liking Terry. I like Terry a lot. I think he's a really good receiver. I think he's, I would wager on this season being a really good season for Terry. I know he's 2 years older from where he was 2 years ago. I know he's coming off injuries and coming off the worst season of his career, but there are a lot of reasons for that, obviously, like he didn't get a chance to play more than 2 games with the starting quarterback last year. Not to mention all of the other issues that they were having on the team, not to mention the long drawn-out contract negotiation, which got him into, the building very late and put him behind the 8 ball. There's no doubt about that. But Terry, to me, is still, and I have a feeling at 31 years old, this is going to be a good season for him. He's such a pro. Last year had to be disappointing. I think any sort of hangover or hurt from the way the contract played out a year ago, I think that's probably now in the rear view. Because I don't think he was the happiest of people when that thing ended, when it finally ended. But he's got an opportunity this year, if he plays really well, to either stay here or potentially leverage it into a big contract somewhere else next year. But if he has a big year, he's under contract. Now, it gets very pricey for the team starting in 2027. We understood that from last summer and the way the contract was structured. It was, for all intents and purposes, really just a 1-year extension, which is this year. Last year, he was already under contract. But I'm expecting really big things from Terry McLaurin this year. He's a good receiver. He is still a legitimate deep threat, not, an elite deep threat, but a deep threat. He's an excellent route runner. He's a blocker, and he is a very good contested catch guy, period. He's also capable of being in any spot offensively and being effective. I'm very interested to see what Blau does with Terry and the group of receivers as a whole and the group of tight ends for sure. But you're going to see Terry, and we know this just from the way Amon-Ra was used in Detroit. And I'm not comparing Terry to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is at another level, in all honesty. He's also clearly an inside receiver. But Amon-Ra's ability inside, sometimes I look at Terry and I'm like, who had him inside a bunch, matched up against safeties and sometimes linebackers? Scott Turner did. I think we're going to see Terry all over the field, and I think he's going to have a big year. And I think he, right now, with Ertz gone and no clear-cut number 2 wide receiver, I think he's the guy that Jaden's going to trust the most. And I just look at all of the other possibilities, and I'm like, I really do like Oweh. I think he's got a chance to really, break out and become one of the league's better pass rushers or more consistent pass rushers. I actually really like the way Kinlaw played last year. I think Sheehan in this system, if it is Brian Flores-esque, could really be a special player. I think Styles certainly has a lot of talent. I'm very interested in Nick Cross. I've already told you, I think Nick Cross might end up being the biggest surprise out of all of their guys. He is an exceptional tackler and super high IQ. Who else did I... a guy like Connerly Jr. with the way he came on at the end of the year. Cosme's already proven that he does have high-level ability when he's healthy. But I'm going to go with Terry as my third best player on the team entering 2026. Go ahead, Max. Give me your top 3.
All right. Well, my top 3 are top 2, very similar to yours, Jaden Daniels, Laramie Tunsil. Number 3 is interesting, but there is one guy that you hadn't named.
Okay.
Now he's a special teamer. Tress Way. You could make the argument. Now I'm looking at your face and you are
it's fine. I think you have the right to do it because I didn't say we're not doing special teams players. We're not doing Tress Way and we're not doing Jalen Lane as a punt returner because Jalen Lane looks like a high-level punt returner.
That he does.
Yeah.
But if I did have to pick somebody on the offense or defensive
side
of the
Luke
ball,
McCaffrey's a pretty damn good kickoff returner.
One of the best in the league last year by the numbers. But I'm going to go with Sam Cosme. Just when he went down and was out to start the year and came back,
right.
You could just see the offensive line play elevate. And I mean, he's a dog. He's a killer. And he'll maul you to death. Just, yeah. Sam Cosme, my right guard of the future.
Bobby in North Carolina just sent me a text and he just said, "You're about to piss everybody off when you say 17's not the third best player." And there was a chance I wasn't going to say him, but I think he is. I think right now, based on what we know, he is. We know he's really good. The debate about elite top 10 versus, somewhere between 12 and 18. I mean, we're quibbling really because 12 to 18 in a league filled with great receivers means he's very good, and he is very good. And so we know that about him. We're still not sure, 100% sure, that Josh Connerly is very good. We're still not sure, really, if Odafe Oweh is going to be consistent enough to be called very good. I think Nick Cross has just shown a level of consistency during his 4-year career, as has Chig without a quarterback, that really has me leaning in the direction of both of those players as players that are going to truly break out on a league level. Like, I really believe that this time next year, Chig Okonkwo is going to be on those tight end lists. And I think that Nick Cross might not be in a top 10, but he might be others receiving votes. Nick Cross, people, you're going to love him. I'm telling you, this guy hits. He doesn't miss tackles. He's smart. He's versatile. And they're going to be aggressive. And there are going to be a lot of players dancing around within a yard or two of the line of scrimmage, and he's going to be one of them. You could actually say that, in terms of what we know, Jeremy Reeves as a special teamer is elite. But
can I throw one more name out there that I think would be the third best player on the roster if he were on the team?
Oh. Okay.
Stephon Diggs.
Okay.
Where would
We're
he
going to
fall?
get to that. We're going to get to that. There's some buzzing about Stephon Diggs here this morning.
I've
we'll
noticed.
Get to that. Oh, let me just mention. I forgot to mention one other player that was among my list of. I'll mention him in a moment. There's another player that this time last year, I think had in my top 3 or certainly in my top 5 of best players. And I haven't even mentioned him yet, but I will here in a moment. All right, top 3 players on the team, your calls next. Stay there, Robert, Bay, JJ, Jason, Billy, Joey, Tom, and everybody else. We do have a line open if you want to jump on. Top 3 players, I think the top 2 are easy. Jaden and Tunsil, in some order, are the 2 best players on the team. But it does bring up an interesting question as to who you will have at number 3. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. All right. Top 3 players on the team right now as you see it entering 2026. The top 2, I think, are easy. I mean, maybe you'll have one of these players outside of your top 3, but Jaden Daniels, Laramie Tunsil, in some order, are your 2 best players on the roster. Who's the 3rd best player on the roster? There's a player who I didn't mention that was in consideration for me, and I think last year may have been – if we did this segment last year, which I'm pretty sure we did, and I don't know if it was top 3 or top 5, but I'm pretty sure this player was on my list. He's not on my list he's not number 3, but I could see falling in love with this player and realizing this player is really good again this year in Durante Jones's scheme. I'll mention who that is if nobody else does coming up here. All right, top 3 players. I've got JD5, Tunsil, and Terry as the 3rd best player on the team. Let's start with my guy, Bay, in D.C. Bay, go ahead.
Man, Kev, thanks for taking my call, man. I have
Sure.
the exact same 3 you have. I have Terry, I have JD, and I have Laramie Tunsil. And if it was to be a 4th person on the defense, just because of his heart, I would pick Lulu. But those are the top 3, I believe.
Well, okay, so you just mentioned the player that I didn't mention that I wanted to mention. Frankie Louvu, I think this time next year could be back in the conversation as a player that is really good. By the way, he's not under contract next year, just so everybody knows. I thought there would be a chance going into the 2025 season that Louvu would be at near the top of the list of contract extensions along with Tunsil after the 25 season. But with all the changes on defense, with all of the additions on defense, they didn't do it. And we aren't exactly sure what his role will be. But I think he's going to have a significant role. I think he's a perfect fit for, I think, what Durante Jones is going to try to do. Frankie Louvu's versatile. He really is. He can pass. He can rush the passer from the edge. He can rush the passer from inside. He can cover, and he can go sideline to sideline as a tackler. The defense was a train wreck last year everywhere. I think he got caught up in that. Thank you, Bay, for that. JJ in Omaha, your top 3 players on the team.
JJ, are you muted?
You muted us, JJ. Put JJ on hold. Let's go to Joey in Howard County. Joey, go ahead.
What's up, Kevin? It's Joey, longtime listener. So, like
Thanks,
you,
Joey.
my top 3, I have Jaden Daniels, Laramie Tunsil, and then number 3, I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I have veteran cornerback Amik Robertson.
It's an interesting one. Why Robertson?
So Robertson, he fills one of our biggest weaknesses at our cornerback position, and I think he'll be a great veteran presence to Sanders Still and Trey Amos.
Thanks for the call. Let me just say that there is a lot of belief in Amik Robertson out there, for sure, in his competitiveness, in his toughness. He's going to be a significant contributor on this defense. He's got to stay healthy. But I don't know that I would put Amik Robertson up into my top 3 area, but you may not be wrong. I mean, there's so many new faces. We don't know how it'll all fit together. I know this. They love his toughness and his competitiveness, that's for sure. Let's go to Jamal in D.C. Jamal, go ahead. Top 3 players on the team. Jamal.
And I'm going to have to ban some of you guys.
Some of you guys got to be ready. Let's go to Mark in Largo. He's always ready.
You know I'm ready. You know,
Okay, where did Terry McLaurin go? Jaden Terry and Sonny Styles. Where'd Terry McLaurin go, Kevin? What is wrong with you? Did you take
What?
the caffeine this morning?
Wait, hold on.
Where'd Terry McLaurin go?
I have Terry in my top 3.
Then what? Terry, Sonny, and Jaden.
Are you? Do you have a hearing issue
you
or
listen?
a comprehension issue?
No, do you?
All right.
You're killing me for Terry. I have Terry in my top 3.
Okay, all right, my fault. I apologize. I didn't hear it.
Well, you got to listen. Why are you calling in for this segment without listening? Did you just guess that we were going to do the top 3 players on the team this morning?
Well, yes, I knew you were going to do the top three players, and I think Sonny Styles is definitely going to be the number one. Look, I've said this to you before. Sonny Styles and Jaden Daniels are going to be the two best players on the same team in this division, period, this year.
Okay. So you got Sonny, Terry, and Jaden. Did you want to put them in order?
Yeah. Well, Jaden is number one, and then everybody else is second. It doesn't really matter. Jaden is number one.
All right, so you left Tunsil out of your top three. Would he be right there on the verge of busting into your top three?
He would be on the verge, but Sonny, to me, Sonny, look, when I look at Sonny Styles, this is going to sound crazy what I'm about to say, but I can't believe I'm about to say this. Sonny Styles reminds me of a more efficient Lawrence Taylor. I've never seen any. Lawrence Taylor would not have been a great linebacker in a 4-3. And people don't know that, Kevin. People know that people think that Lawrence Taylor was in a 4-3. He was actually in a 3-4.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Yes.
Sonny being in a 3-4, it's just going to make him look tremendously crazy. And then you got a coach in Dan Quinn who knows how to develop linebackers like that. It's crazy.
Okay.
I don't think a lot of people are giving this team a lot of pub.
All right. So I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to speak now and respond to your call. So let's not continue to talk. Yeah, you'll have another chance. Don't disengage with Mark and Largo. Mark wasn't listening. The first thing was he was on the attack per usual. And then he understood that I actually did have Terry in my top three. Okay. Sonny Styles and Lawrence Taylor.
It's going in the file.
This is in the file with Alex Sars better than Wembenyama. And what's the more recent one? I'm forgetting.
Wizards back-to-back 28-29 champs.
Wizards back-to-back champs in 28 and 29. As Bill Belichick would say to you, Mark and Largo, I like Sonny Styles. He hasn't played a down in the NFL, and we're talking about LT now. We're talking about the greatest football player in your lifetime and my lifetime. You're much older than I am. But in both of our lifetimes, Lawrence Taylor is the greatest player ever. So you now think Sonny Styles is going to be comped or is comped to the greatest player. I'll have you know they don't play the same position. You know that. Lawrence Taylor was an outside linebacker in a 3-4. Sonny Styles is going to be an inside linebacker. You may now speak. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
I like how Dan is going to use him. We don't know how Dan is going to really use him, because they're going to be blitzing everywhere.
Yeah.
So he's going to be. This defense is going to. I think this defense is going to remind you of the defense that Greg Williams had 20 years ago, Kevin.
That was the best defense of the last 20 years. If 2022 was decent, they were pretty good defensively in 2022.
Yes,
yeah.
I agree with you there. Yeah, I agree with you there. I agree with you there.
Okay.
Great call, Kevin.
Good call, Mark. I mean, it didn't start well, and I'm not sure the middle was very exciting either. But I'm glad the way it ended, like it always does, cordially with Mark and Largo.
Always ends well. Yeah.
All right, everybody else on hold, stay there. Lawrence, you did write that one down, right? Sonny Styles,
yes,
Lawrence Taylor.
more efficient Lawrence Taylor,
just
July
put
30th.
Sonny's more efficient. What else was it?
He said Sonny Styles will be a more efficient Lawrence Taylor. That was the quote I got.
Lawrence Taylor. Okay. Robert, Jamal, G, Jason, Billy, JJ from Omaha, Mark, stay on hold. More of your calls next. Top three players on the team. The top two, I think, are easy. Mark didn't have Tunsil in his top two, but I think JD5 and Tunsil are two players that have to be in your top three. But then there's, reasonable debate about number three. I've got Terry number three. Mark didn't hear me putting Terry number three. He just assumed I wouldn't. I think that was it. He didn't wait to hear my top three. He just assumed I wouldn't. And he, wrote his script without hearing the actual lead-in segment. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. We're free and live on the Odyssey app. From CJ, LT played all over the place, Sheehan. I'm a big Giant fan. The 86 Super Bowl team and the 90 Super Bowl team, you watched LT. He lined up everywhere. Yes, but their base defense was a 3-4 under Belichick. It was, and I remember these guys, but I did look it up. Jim Burt at nose tackle, Leonard Marshall and George Martin as the defensive ends, and then LT and Carl Banks as the outside backers, Harry Carson and Gary Reasons as the inside backers. I found this quote, by the way, from Joe Gibbs about the 86 Giants. He said, "The Giants drove me crazy. They gave me the most fits. They were the opposite of Buddy Ryan's Bears defense. They played that soft, too-deep zone that didn't allow any big plays. You had to earn everything you got against the Giants." The 86 Giants, of course, won the Super Bowl, their first Super Bowl. They beat Washington. They beat the Redskins in the NFC title game. And then they won it again in 90 with a great defense. And Jeff Hostetler at the end of that season through the playoffs as the starting quarterback because Phil Simms got hurt. But that team was dominant defensively too. Had to look this up because the first DBs I remember were guys like Everson Walls and Elvis Patterson. The safeties were in the 86 team, Kenny Hill and Herb Welch. Not big names for Giant fans, yes. And then the 90 team was Greg Jackson and Myron Guyton. But man, that front seven for the Giants during those years, wow. The 90 team also featured Pepper Johnson as an inside linebacker because at that point, I think Harry Carson had retired. Did Harry Carson retire? Is that why he wasn't on the 90 team? I'd have to look that up. Maybe he was hurt. All right, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Who are the top three players on the team? I think the top two are easy. Jaden Daniels and Laramie Tunsil. Number three is debatable. I had Terry as number three. I know that surprises some of you, but I've got Terry at number three. Max put Sam Cosmi at number three. Let's go to, is JJ in Omaha ready? Go ahead, JJ.
What's up, Kevin?
Hey, JJ, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. I almost forgot about Laramie Tunsil. I don't know how he's so large of a human, but I think Jaden, Larry, and has to be Terry at this point in his career. He's the most experienced. When he's healthy, he's productive. You know what I mean? So I would have to go with those three. But can I say something as far as the roster right now?
Yeah.
In my opinion, Kevin, I'm not getting vibes that we got a whole lot better. And I didn't hear a lot of the other calls, but somebody that we paid over $100 million, and I know it doesn't matter what we pay them, is what they do on the field. But Odafe, he should be one of our top players, and not a lot of people are even recognizing him. So
sure,
we're going into year three, right, or year four of AP?
Year three of Adam Peters and Dan Quinn.
Of Peters. So it's to me, comparing us to other rosters in the league, it's just I'm not seeing it. And
no, you're not wrong
on the back end. Okay.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I think comparing our roster to other teams around the league on paper going in, first of all, the defense is very much a mystery at this point. There are a lot of unknowns because Owe did have a very strong finish to his season in Los Angeles and had an unbelievable playoff game in Foxborough. Kinlaw played well for us last year. Dorrance Armstrong played well before he got hurt, but as part of a bad defense. Chenal might be a good fit. Styles was a good pick, certainly based on the talent. Chason can get after the quarterback. I like Nick Cross. We all liked Amos before he got hurt last year. There's just a lot of unknown. You're right in that it certainly doesn't stack up on paper against the best rosters in the NFL. It's back half of the league. Absolutely. in terms of rosters. But because there are so many new additions and we don't know what it'll look like in the new schemes, both sides of the ball, we could be sitting here 5 months from now saying, man, Oweh really ascended. We got him right at the beginning of his, window of being great because he's talented. Maybe the same thing with Chenal and Chason. Maybe Styles really is like an incredible rookie. Maybe Sanders still back. They've got some players that are interesting on defense with a chance, but they haven't proven it, and they certainly haven't proven it here. And then offensively, understood. Although I like Chigakonkwo in this offense, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can produce. But you're not wrong. Right now, the roster certainly looks bottom half, back half of the league, maybe bottom third of the league. Let's go to G. G, go ahead. You want to talk baseball?
Yeah, when it comes to September and October, I'm like you, Sheehan. I love baseball, especially in the playoffs, man. But I hope your list, Max's list, and I hope Mark from Largo's list is correct once we start playing real games, because I see what he's saying with the Sonny Styles, because I think picking up the Kansas City dude and Frankie Louvu staying here, that's going to help out Sonny Styles, take a lot of pressure off him, and he get to play free, I think. But mine is Jeremy Reeves, Terry McLaurin, and Jaden Daniels is number one. Because Reeves is just a football player. He's one of them dudes at recess that do everything. He like that. And Terry done showed what he did with Heinekens and Sam Howell, man. So we got to give him that tip of the cap. I ain't saying no offensive lineman, because you right. Tunsil, I was a fan of him when he put out his draft picture. I know his talent. But at the same time, I'm picking dudes that touch the football and really have a big impact. And that's why I hope your list is right, because if Tunsil is undoubtedly one of the top three, that means he's a Pro Bowl, All-Pro, and Jaden Daniels going to stay healthy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I think the thing with Reeves, I don't think you're wrong. I think probably just in terms of being a football player, I mean, he's up there. But he's just not in a position to have as much of an impact because he doesn't play as many plays as the rest of these guys. Now, I say that, and yet I know that they like him on the field defensively. He played – I mean, Suter thought that Reeves was an absolute have to bring back, and he would have had him on the field even more last year.
I would have had him on the – I would have had him on the field more for the last 2-3 years, because he every time he does make play, every time he suits up and gets on the field, he makes jump off the TV screen plays. That's the type of player he's super smart. You can tell he's staying in the film room. And I love hard hitters, Paul. I love when they bring that wood, man. So yeah, man, Revo got to get that respect, and he should have got more playing time. And they should be able to be smart enough to figure out what position he would be most effective in to get more playing time. But I just want to know, how much do you pay Mark from Largo to call in with this absurdity? Because
he does it for free,
I don't
man.
pay him anything, but he's good. By the way, what is Reeves at recess? Kickball, dodgeball, hoops, soccer, doesn't matter what he's playing, right? He's balling out in everything.
Just like me, Sheehan. When I was in 5th grade, man, I had 5 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in a 20-minute recess.
In a 20-minute recess, yeah. Which, by the way, the first 10 minutes were picking teams. All right, I got to go. Thanks, as always, G from the shop. Let's go to Robert in Annapolis. Robert, who are the best 3 players on Washington's roster?
Well, good morning. I'd say that Washington has 2 proven premium players, and obviously you've named them in Daniels and Tunsil. Number 3, I actually, Max took my guy, Sam Cosmi, and I actually have a different philosophy than G. He said something
first
about
it was
the guy
Tress Way. Let's clear that up.
Yeah.
No, I mentioned Tress second there, but anyhow, you mentioned him too. But I have a different philosophy than G, who said something about the player that touched the ball. Mine's more like the Doc Walker philosophy, the guys in the pits, because, they have a function on every play. In every offensive play, they have an assignment that they have to carry out or the play could fail. Receivers do not, nor do running backs. they have certain plays where they're most important, perhaps, but it's just go back to the.
They all have responsibilities on every play, but the offensive line is guaranteed to be involved in contact on every single play.
Yeah, what is a wideout doing on a handoff? Yeah, he may have a block downfield if the runner breaks free, but the point is,
best running teams are your teams where your receivers are blockers and good blockers.
Okay, hey, Kevin, the offensive line is the engine to the offense.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I was actually just adding to your point that they're on every single play. They're the players that are guaranteed to be involved in contact on every play. Every other player on offense, there's a chance there won't be any contact on the play.
But the debate probably is going to come to Cosme's a proven top tier offensive lineman. I think he's only about 27. He's only about 27. And if you're factoring those things, Terry's now 30 as a receiver. I would just take him. Not to say Terry's not a good player. I'm not like you. I don't say that, but I don't rate him the way others would do. But I would say Cosme is really the guy.
All right.
Well, at least I like to have on my.
You're in agreement with Max. Cosme is a really good player. He's certainly one of the players that I considered for that. Thanks, Robert in Annapolis. Let's get to Jamal. Jamal, hope you're there. Go ahead.
Kevin, can you hear me?
I got you. Got you this
All
time,
right.
Jamal.
So, all right. So, the Jaden, obviously, Tunsil, and I agree with the last caller, Cosme. I would say Terry, but to his point, man, receivers don't make that much of it. Well, I'm not going to say that. Terry doesn't in particular. And again, I love Terry, but if Terry were like Megatron or something, I would say him because you know why, Kevin. At that point, even if he's not getting the ball, the disadvantage, advantage he's providing us just from a schematic point from the defense would make him that high of a player. However, though, I was thinking this, Kevin, if we were to remove the credentials, and we were just to ask, who are the three dudes on the team? And you look at the team and you're like, yo, those three dudes, the crazy part is Jaden and Tunsil are still the top two. If you do that, now that last one you're fighting for probably would be Sonny Styles, Trey Amos, and maybe Trey Burke. Now, I know a lot of people probably like Trey Burke, but people look at the tape. Trey Burke, just from aesthetically, he's a dude. You know what I'm saying? Now, you got to go prove it, but aesthetically, definitely a dude, man. So I was thinking about that real quick, too, Kevin, while I got you, because you're the hoops guy. AJ, I've been thinking about who he is going to be and potentially his comp. I finally got it. A more athletic Monster Mash. I was like, that's who he's going to be.
A more athletic who? Mash? Did you say Mashburn?
Yes, a more athletic Mashburn. That's who I got. So I feel like we should.
I mean, he's taller and longer than Mashburn, right?
Right, but the way he plays.
What was Mashburn? Was Mashburn 6'6", 6'7"?
6'7".
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's 6'9", 6'10". But I think the way he plays the game, like if you combine that with T-Mac and maybe Melo, I think we might have. Well, I know we have something, but I just think the way he plays the game, like he doesn't quite have. I mean, he has an ability to put the ball on the floor. It's better than what I thought it was, but it's not quite T-Mac or Paul George. But he definitely knows how to get to his spot. And the mid-range, in my opinion, is much comparable to a Mashburn, and I think he'll develop the three. But we got us one, though, Kevin. We definitely got to go.
By the way, on my list of things to talk about today, if the training camp stuff got to the point where we had an opening to talk about something else, is just the reports out there that the Wizards are interested in DeMar DeRozan, which is really interesting to me. I actually think that Darren Peterson's comp in many ways is DeMar DeRozan. Stylistically, the way they play. Always been a big DeMar DeRozan fan, and that would be an interesting veteran to add to this group. But anyway, thank you for the call, Jamal. 301-230-0980, the top three players on the roster. I've got Jaden and Laramie, 1-2. And then I've got Terry at number 3. Jason and Laurel, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, thanks for taking the call.
Sure.
This has been a great segment so far. Mark and Largo, wow. By the way, I'll take Sonny as good as LT if that's in the running.
But wait a minute, you would take Sonny over LT?
No, I'm saying if that's going to be the comp, I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll
I
sign
mean,
up for that.
like, yeah, but please, like, I'd have to check you in, and you'd need literally medical examination if you had a choice of Sonny Styles now or Lawrence Taylor, as a 23-year-old right now. Lawrence Taylor, we can't include him in conversations with players
best ever
of today. He's one of the all-time outliers. Sometimes some of you are at a certain age. I'm not exaggerating when I say about LT. He changed the game. He was legitimately the most dominant player on the field, either side of the ball, in almost every game he played in. I had hoped that LeVar was going to be the GOAT for me in terms of all-around football players in my lifetime. Anybody, Mark and Largo can get away with it because he's insane. But anybody else that talks about any player and compares him to LT as in just as good needs their head examined. Continue, Jason.
No, I agree. I agree, but I wanted LeVar to be LT, but
I did too.
Ended up just wanting.
I did too. Yep.
Well, I think if Bobby Wagner was still here, it would be Bobby Wagner. I think it's Luvu. I actually think Luvu is a better,
think if
more
Wagner were
player.
on the roster, he'd be the third best player? Wow.
I do. I still think he'd be the third best player. So I'm going to say Lulu, but what I hope is this time next year, we're having a heated argument about Owe or Sonny Styles being the third best player.
Yeah, me too. Or Chason or Kinlaw or Cross or, a lot. I hope there's a massive debate of like, oh my God, we've got to do a top 5 list next year. Thank you, Jason. Paulie, Billy, Eric, stay there. We'll finish up with a few more calls. Then I want to get to Stephon Diggs because there is a little bit of juice out there on Diggs and Washington. I'll explain in about 10, 12 minutes. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. a text from a coach friend in town. I agree on LT, but Myles Garrett would be very close if he had played for Parcells and Belichick. Myles Garrett's an outrageous talent. There's no doubt about that. He's different, though. He is a hand-in-the-dirt defensive end. LT was an outside linebacker, so they're different. Now, as edge pass rushers, there are similarities for sure. Yeah, I mean, we're going to see Garrett still in his prime, play for the Los Angeles Rams and that team. It's going to be fun to watch, except when they play us. Hopefully he's not available for that game. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Top three players on our football team. I've got Jaden Daniels, Laramie Tunsil, and Terry McLaurin as my top three. Billy and Chantilly, go ahead. Who are your top three?
Kevin, DC known for the arts. We got the U Street, the go-go music, the Discord, and the punk scene.
The punk scene,
the
for
arts
sure.
Community lost a great artist yesterday in Glenn Hansard. So just a shout out to him.
Wow.
I saw him at
I didn't see that.
930 Club in April
Wow.
of this year, and he was phenomenal. So big loss. Godspeed.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Well,
I mean, I by the way, the new 930 Club, or not as new anymore, but
phenomenal.
Incredible. Okay,
Incredible.
so go ahead. Who are your top three?
It's Jaden. It's Terry. It should be Wagner. Bobby should absolutely be on this team with the rookie defensive coordinator. I don't know who the other guy was that mentioned that. That first ballot Hall of Famer out there not playing right now. He should be on this team. You got a rookie talent like Sonny. He should be on this team right now.
Look, I am not in the same camp as many fans to think that Bobby Wagner can't play anymore, or that he proved that he couldn't play anymore last year at 35, 36 years old. He was still their best tackler. He was a pretty good pass rusher at times, but he can't run anymore. That's very, very clear. He cannot run, which means the number of snaps that he should be involved in have to be fewer than what they were
you know who else
playing.
Couldn't run? You know who couldn't run? Dick Butkus couldn't run. Neither could Mike Singletary.
And by the time they got to where Bobby was, they were diminished players. Bobby Wagner's not Bobby Wagner from 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. For me, he'd be nowhere near the top three players on the team. Now, in terms of contributors and valuable members of the team, of course he'd be up there. But if Bobby Wagner's the third best player on your team, you got some issues with him at 36 years old. And I love Bobby Wagner and thought he played better than a lot of our fans thought he played last year.
Yes. Listen, if you got Terry as your second best player last year, you got to have him in camp. Period. End of story. That's a huge miss last year.
It is. It's too bad he and his agent didn't recognize that.
Well, whatever it was, you got to get him in camp.
Yeah. Well, it takes two to get somebody to camp. Paulie, go ahead.
Hell to the W, man. Big
What's
guy,
up?
how you doing, man?
I'm good.
Hey, it's too bad Adam Peters didn't recognize how important Terry was to get him into camp.
Yeah, no, it's a two-way street. That's the point. Is that it takes two.
All relationships are, man. But yeah, my list mirrors your list. I got Terry in there at 3, and just like we said, just look how the offense. The offense was stagnant without him, and to me, the telltale game was when he was 100% healthy in that Denver Bronco game. I mean, he's not an elite player like you said, but he has elite moments. And
yes, he does.
A game where he was having elite moments because he was owning Patrick Surtain Jr. in that game. So it definitely turned. But if we want to, look ahead in the crystal ball to next year on the same thing with the same topic, I would say the guy I said who would be on the list next year, and I'm going to go with Josh Conley Jr., man. I really think we're going to see a real primetime player this year. Last year, he took his lumps. He was a boy amongst men last year, and he went through a gauntlet of pass rushes to start the
True.
season. You know, and by the time the season was over with, but by the time the end of the season, you barely heard his name. And as an offensive lineman, that's what you want. You don't want nobody to be saying your name. That means you're doing your job. And he's a first-round pick, and the pedigree is there. So I'm looking next year, maybe we talking about Josh Conley as one of the top.
It's actually in some ways a better way to do the segment. Typical of Paulie, helping out with the show production. I mean, I think we kind of did that with the position lists when we asked the question, who's not on this list that you think will be on it next year. But it really is, because it is a debate right now, because there's a lot that's unknown. That's kind of why I went with Terry. Like, I'd love to know for sure that Odafe Owe is a double-digit sack guy and a menace as a pass rusher, because he'd be, I hope he's 3. Connerly could be 3, to your point. I think Cross or Chig, there are possibilities. Antonio Williams could be 3 next year. Sonny Styles could be 3. But projecting who's – say again?
I got another one for 3 for you. I hope this guy Leo Chenal come in here.
Me too.
And make a case like what's my guy out there with the Eagles that came from the Saints, Vaughn. Zach Bond. I see the Zach Bond. I see the same type of pedigree between those two guys coming to a new team and coming to a defense that fits your skills. And he was pretty solid out there in Kansas City. So hopefully we talking about Chanel. Being the top 3, 4, 5 player next year.
Yeah. I mean, that's what makes the conversation tough right now, because there are a lot of possibilities. And part of the conversation this week, it's a big unknown, because the way the NFL works is it's got to blend together. There's got to be good fits. The scheme's got to fit the player. The player's got to be healthy, all of those things. But I love the way Chenal plays. I think he's, along with Bolton, he's been one of the standout, obviously Chris Jones and McDuffie when he was there. But in terms of some of the other chief defenders, they always flashed. Bolton always flashed. Chenal always flashed. So I'm with you. And I think there's a possibility. He's a young player. He's a young player for sure. Guy, all right, man.
Hey, big guy, man. How much you paid Mark and Largo for the points, man? Because
that's going to be the running question. Shot, I'll come up with a price. I'll come up with a number for him. I got to roll. Eric in Ellicott City. Eric, go ahead.
Hey, Kev, how's it going? First time calling.
Good, Eric. How are you?
My son Joey called in earlier with a meek, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Oh, good one.
I got one for you.
Okay.
You just mentioned his name. I'm a huge Terp fan. Chig. He is going to be.
Yeah, I mean,
I believe a little bit of.
I've loved Chig going back to College Park. I mean, he's not, Vernon Davis in terms of the talent, but he is a talent at that position, and he hasn't had an offense or a quarterback yet, and he's going to have one this year. So I think he could easily be a major breakout player.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. He's going to be Jaden's safety blanket, similar to how, Zach Ertz was. I think he's an explosive player. He had a great end of the season last year. And he's just going to be one of their best offensive weapons outside of Terry. So obviously I had JD5 and Terry, but I think Chig would be my top 3.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. I had a lot of answers. I'm looking at Twitter right now. A lot of answers. A couple of you, including G, and he didn't mention this when he called, said, is Ayuk available for consideration? That, by the way, NFL Nick, who wrote that in. No, he's not available for consideration. What if he were on the roster, though? Would we consider him? Sure. All right. Stephon Diggs. There's a little bit of smoke around him and Washington right now. We'll explain when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show. The Team 980, theteam980.com. Don't forget you can watch this show on our Team 980 YouTube channel. When you get there, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button. So Nikki Jabvala, who covers the team, as all of you know, for The Athletic, posted a tweet about an hour ago. And she's got a video running, a GIF or a GIF of Stephon Diggs on a sideline playing for the Buffalo Bills, screaming and pointing to himself, "I'm him," as the kids say. And Nikki's post is my assessment of the first 2 days of Commanders camp, meaning they need another receiver, and perhaps meaning maybe it's going to be Diggs. So there's been a number of people who have reached out on the show, calls, tweets, emails, etc. Why haven't they done stuff on Diggs yet? If you're so convinced that the chances on Ayuk are zero, why not Diggs? There are a lot of reasons. The number one reason would be money. The number one reason would be the player's asking for too much and the team doesn't see the value the same way. So until they get to a certain level of closeness, money-wise, it's not going to happen. Another reason is the player, for right now, would prefer not to participate in the early portion of training camp. You get that a lot during the offseason. It's like the player wants to be, Turks, Caicos, Bahamas, wherever they're hanging out, not at OTAs. And there's no, voluntary opportunity to participate in OTAs if you're not signed with a team. There's also always the possibility that the interest level in the player from team or teams isn't as high as maybe we think it should be. And that can be for a number of reasons, some of which we're not even thinking about. They're personal. They know something we don't. But more times than not, with a player like Diggs, who performed last year, who's available for teams that are actually looking for, a number one or a number two receiver, it's usually he wants a lot more than what the team is willing to pay him. Now, we pulled this up a few months ago. The spot track number for market value for Stephon Diggs is a 2-year deal worth $28 million, $27.6 to be exact. So $13.8 a year. Does Diggs want more than that? Not sure. The contract that he signed in New England last year paid him $22.5 million on average. Does he feel like he deserves at least that after being the leading receiver on a team that went to the Super Bowl? That may be the issue. Anyway, we have so John Keim was on with the Junkies earlier this morning. And Max, they asked him, right, about Stephon Diggs specifically?
They asked him about any wide receivers that the Commanders could potentially be in on. So here is Jason Bishop with John Keim.
Do you feel like, deep down, they're still in play for maybe not Ayuk, but another receiver that is unsigned right now?
Oh, yeah, Stephon Diggs.
Okay, all right, it's Diggs. All right.
Yeah. I don't think there's anybody else other than him that would be a possibility at this point. And I'm not going to discuss any, at this point, nobody else is free
right.
that I think would tempt them. And I think some people who may come free later have not helped themselves this offseason in the last month and a half in particular.
Right. What are they waiting for, though, John, with Diggs? What are they waiting? Just do it. Get him in there sooner rather than later, right?
Well, no team has brought him in. So what does that usually signal?
The player wants too much?
Too much cash?
The player wants more than what he's being offered.
Right,
so,
right.
And whatever, and I don't even know, what's fair, what's not, right? But usually when a guy's not signed, it's going to come down to the right offer either has to kind of accept whatever or hope that somebody else maybe adds more to the total. But so that's usually the case. And I don't know in particular, sometimes usually for veterans, you don't always want to get in there too early. But you need to get in there now.
Yeah. That would be those are the reasons. I mean, I added a couple of other reasons to it. Now, so that was John this morning. Immediately said Stephon Diggs. Nikki just tweeted out, a Stephon Diggs meme, I'm him, and that's her assessment of the first 2 days of camp, essentially saying they need another receiver. So where do we think they are on Stephon Diggs? I look, who did we have on the show last week? Was it Barnwell who said, or maybe it was Jeremy Fowler? Jeremy Fowler said that, guys like Demario Douglas in New England could end up being camp casualties, with A.J. Brown there. A guy like Tillman in Cleveland could be available. So there could be guys that become available later in the summer after cuts. Remember, there are no more, I'm pretty sure this is true because I think last year was the first year of this. You may want to check me on this, Max. But I think there's only one cut now, and it's after the third preseason game and you go from 90 to 53. And then you add your 17 for the, 70-man, 17 practice squad player. You up to 17 if you want to. So there's the possibility that guys like that could come available, but that's going to be much later and much closer to the opener.
August 30th.
It's August 30th, and it's just one cut now, right? 90
Correct.
to 53.
One cut, final deadline 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Sunday.
Right. So here are the people out there. At the top of the list, it's Diggs, because Tyreek Hill isn't healthy right now. Deebo Samuel's still out there. A guy like DeAndre Hopkins at, 34, 35 years old is still out there. Keenan Allen is still out there. Keenan Allen, though, to me Keenan Allen would be better than everything they have other than Terry, but there is a skill set that's similar to some of the guys they have. Van Jefferson, Treylon Burks, and I just have a feeling Keenan Allen's going back to play with Justin Herbert eventually. Who else is out there? I'm looking down the list. Noah Brown's still out there. Noah Brown is available. On Diggs, I've said this all along. Yes, sign me up. I look, we already know about Adam Peters, that on some players he has, overpaid a bit. People would say he overpaid on Oweh this year. People would say he overpaid on Kinlaw last year. I think he was right about Kinlaw. Let's hope he's right about Oweh as well. And then on other players, because of, different reasons and different overall contexts, he's been, not wanting to pay above the number he thinks is fair market value. So for a veteran player like Diggs, and remember how they treat analytics when it comes to the wide receiver position. Why didn't they give Terry more than, in earnest, in actuality, more than a one-year contract extension? Because their research and analytics department says that receivers, once they get beyond 30, start to diminish. Stephon Diggs is 32, about to become 33 years old. So there could be some interest in Stephon Diggs, but they're going to be more discerning on the money. It's who Adam Peters is right now. Like it or not, it's what he is. He's not going to overpay wildly for a receiver entering his 30s. We saw that last summer. And Stephon Diggs is already into his approaching his mid-30s. So that could be the case. I also think that they are looking for a more vertical threat, a true vertical threat downfield, to stretch the field, to make it much easier, to open it up underneath for Terry, to open it up underneath for Chig, to open it up underneath for other receivers, even for a back out of the backfield like Rachaad White. That's why Brandon Ayuk's talent profile would have been the best fit football-wise, not otherwise. Diggs is more now at this point in his career just an outstanding, fearless, over-the-middle possession receiver. I still think he can run. It's not that he can't run, but he's not what he was a few years ago as a deep threat, as a vertical threat to a defense. Yeah, but I do think it's interesting that within, a couple of hours of each other, that John and Nikki put out what they did about Stephon Diggs and said what John said. I've not heard anything and have continually wondered and talked to people about the possibility of another receiver. I haven't heard anything about their interest level. They don't talk much, but I think it's interesting that she put out that thing. It could be just that this is her expression of how she views the first 2 days of camp, or it could be there is a rumbling somewhere that Diggs wants here and the team is getting closer. Here's the question. We haven't done this. I actually thought about this, Max. We've done a lot on Brandon Ayuk, obviously.
That we have.
But on Diggs, we have not done the yes or no on Diggs. And let's just assume that maybe there's, I think we believe there's legitimate interest from him in playing for our team. And by the way, I would not be surprised if that interest level increased as it became less and less likely that Brandon Ayuk would be here. Because Stephon Diggs did tweet out at some point last week, I'd be the best number 2 in the league. He's never been a number 2 anywhere. He's actually never had a legitimate number 2. In Minnesota, he had Adam Thielen for a few years. That was the closest thing to a true number 2 receiver he's actually ever played with. Here he'd be the number 2 to Terry. I'd love Diggs on this team. Diggs is a gamer. Diggs is a Sunday badass, do whatever it takes to win player. He might be short dose in terms of your ability to handle him, personally, but he's also getting older. This would be him at home. This would be him as sort of the last, run. I think it'd be very helpful to this offense. I do. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Yes or no to Stephon Diggs? And let's just say it would be a fair market value deal. Maybe he wants what he got last year, $22 million a year for 2 years with, a significant portion of it guaranteed. And I would bet you guaranteed dollars is the hang up if there are conversations going on between our team or any other team and Stephon Diggs. But let's just say it's, Spot Track's actual overall fair market value of a 2-year, essentially a $27.6 million deal, $13.8 per year. Something like that. Yeah, sign me up for that. I want Diggs on my field. I want that competitor on my field for my team. I want the guy that's going to make big third down catches in traffic over the middle, taking big shots. Yes would be my answer. Max, what would your answer be on Diggs?
Unequivocally, yes. Like I need us to add another receiver in Stephon Diggs. I mean, he's been telling everybody who will listen, he was on a pitch count last year and he still got 1,000 yards. So imagine what he's going to do without that pitch count. So yeah, Stephon Diggs. 2
years removed from the big injury in Buffalo. And
Stephon Diggs, get down to Ashburn.
Houston. Yeah. Right. All right. 301-230-0980. Stephon Diggs. I can't believe it, but I think Max and I talked about that. We've not actually taken a Stephon Diggs call segment. Could be proven wrong. But yes or no, why or why not on Stephon Diggs being signed by Washington? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980 and the team980.com. from Cece. Bloodstream and culture and locker room, Sheehan. You talked about it all day yesterday. Is that who they want in their bloodstream, culture, and locker room? Yeah, I think we're talking about, legitimately apples and oranges, dogs and cats. But there is baggage. There's no doubt Stefon Diggs has some baggage. It's different baggage than Brandon Ayuk's. The question is yes or no on Brandon Ayuk. Why are we asking? The question is yes or no, on Stefon Diggs. Why are we asking about Diggs today? Nikki Javala tweeted something out an hour ago. It was a GIF of the receiver Stefon Diggs in Buffalo on the sideline, pointing to himself, saying, "I'm him." And Nikki writes, "That's my assessment of the first 2 days of Commanders camp." Meaning one or two things. One, the receivers after Terry don't look great. Number two, maybe there is some smoke around Diggs to Washington. And then John Keim was on with the Junkies this morning, and immediately when asked about another receiver, said, well, Stefon Diggs would be the possibility at this point. No one else is really a possibility at this point. So the question is yes or no on Stefon Diggs. Would you like to see him in camp shortly under a 1 or 2 year deal for what Spot Track says would be a market value of around $14 million a year, 13.8, but rounded up $14 million a year? My answer would be yes. The thing I have always loved about Diggs is no matter what the distractions have been, and eventually, is it possible that he's worn out his welcome and he wears thin on people after a while? Yes, but everybody's always said the dude shows up on Sundays, and he does. He's not exactly what the team is looking for. I think they're looking for more of a true home run, vertical, stretch the defense, outside guy. But Diggs would be, I think, easily the second best receiver on the team the moment he walked through those Ashburn doors. So I'm all a yes on him. This is a big year. It's a year in which I want Jaden to succeed. I want all of the opportunities for him to succeed. I think improving the defense, if they've done that, they've certainly attempted to do it, is the right thing to help Jaden, to help the offense. I think adding what they added after they didn't get their top 2 or 3 targets at receiver, they didn't stand still. They didn't throw their arms up and say, well, we can't do anything now. They added De'Ami Brown. They brought back Treylon Burks. They added Van Jefferson. They went out and added a guy like Rashad White, who I think they feel like they can trust out of the backfield. They added Chig Okonkwo. Okonkwo was going to be added and targeted even if they had landed Alec Pierce or even if they had landed Romeo Doubs. But I would say yes to Diggs. I'd feel actually really good about it for the upcoming season at the very least. And look, if it doesn't work out, you move on. If it doesn't work out for a lot of different reasons, you can move on. But, yeah, I would do it. Max, you would do it as well.
Oh, very much. Yeah, we need that receiver added.
Phone lines are packed for this one. Yes or no on adding Stefon Diggs? Why or why not? Let's start with Fuad. Fuad, go ahead.
Yes, sir, Kevin. This is an absolute yes. And I just actually want to pull up or reference a tweet that Warren Sharp, a lot of my guys, shout out to my guy Faisal in my OG Skins group chat. He put this in here right now. And he said, he referenced how Drake May in 2024 started off with the 5th cheapest wide receiver and tight end room. And by 2026, they have the 9th most expensive with A.J. Brown, Romeo Doubs, and Kayshon Boutte. Now, you compare that with what we've put around Jaden from a talent perspective, and it's not really comparable. So absolutely, bring Stefon Diggs in here. And for the people that are saying that they are concerned with the locker room, hey, if he's hooking up with your sister, I understand. But as long as you're not committing a crime, hey, man, do your thing. I really don't care what you do outside of the field. There was no issues with him in the locker room with Drake May, a young quarterback back last year. So absolutely, bring him in. He's home, and we need talent on the field. It's not my money. So I don't care. As long as it makes sense for Stefon Diggs and the team, pay whatever you got to pay to get him in.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I understand why teams were holding off until his trial was over. You know, he was facing in a trial felony strangulation charges, misdemeanor assault and battery charges, but he was found not guilty by a jury of his peers. I think also the New England thing, let me just mention, the New England thing, you've got to give Josh McDaniels a lot of credit. He has always been able to scheme up lesser players open. It's his trick. He's able to scheme guys open. So last year, you know, the Mac Hollinses and the Demario Douglases, and then, of course, the Stephon Diggs, but also a Hunter Henry, you know, at tight end. Those guys were open. They were second or third in the league in the most wide open rate in the NFL. And Drake May really stepped up, you know, and was able to deliver. You know, I read something about play callers this morning. The Athletic, I think it was the Athletic, ranked the top 10 offensive play callers in the game. And the league said about Josh McDaniels, nobody schemes up easier throws for a quarterback than Josh McDaniels does. And that was the case last year. I also always wonder, you know, when a team that goes to the Super Bowl decides not to even attempt to bring back their leading receiver, what that says. Now, part of it is they traded for A.J. Brown, and there was always an intention to trade for A.J. Brown. They added Romeo Doubs, you know, to that offense in New England. But okay, yep, Fuad, thanks. That's one yes in the book. By the way, our Waldorf Honda Twitter poll of the day is about Stephon Diggs. Yes or no on Diggs. You can vote by going to at Team 980. I will retweet it as well from Kevin Sheehan, DC. I would sign him, and I think in part because there's no longer an option for Brandon Ayuk. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Q. Q, yes or no on Diggs, why or why not?
And this is my second time calling your show. A month ago, me and you had a disagreement about the Brandon Ayuk situation, and I told you to listen to the Brent Cohn interview, and I'm just going to say it openly on the air. You were right. I'm out on Brandon Ayuk, but we're talking about Stephon Diggs. I believe that we need to get Stephon Diggs. Not only should we get Stephon Diggs, we need to do and give him what he wants. And the reason why I'm saying this is because there's a good chance, not only does he help this team, but Stephon Diggs can rival Terry McLaurin as the number one receiver, even at his age today. When you look at the makeup and the talent and the skill set side by side with Terry McLaurin and his ability to stretch the field, we say that he wins that. But every other receiver ability, we're not talking about the character, because we would, if it was my choice, we'll have a roster full of Terry McLaurins. But when we're talking about the receiver ability to be able to beat man-to-man coverage, to be able to create separation from the route, definitely he will probably rival McLaurin for the number one receiver spot. And I'm going to make a bold prediction. If they get Brandon Ayuk, I believe they'll win 10 games or more with Brandon Ayuk.
With Diggs or Ayuk?
I mean, Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Look, I agree with you that Diggs certainly would rival Terry. Terry. I think most people would think Terry's the one. Diggs is your best two possibility, but Diggs, look, man, this dude has been an elite level route runner during his career.
Agreed.
He is great against man coverage. He's exceptional against zone coverage. He's explosive with the ball in his hands. He is very, very good when a quarterback like Jaden Daniels gets out of the pocket, extends players to get open and be available. and then he's one of those tough, competitive dudes on game day that I love. I've loved watching Stephon Diggs. I've rooted for him, mostly because he's a Terp. And I think he's been outstanding. Is he the same player that he was? No, but he, more recently than anybody else, has had a really good season in terms of the players who are available. Over 1,000 yards, 85 catches. I think in this offense, you can pencil him in for another 80, catches and another 900-plus yards to go with Terry's, hopefully 70s, 80s, and somewhere around 1,000 as well. The answer is yes on Stephon Diggs. For this team, 100% yes. Thank you, Q, for that. Let's go to TC. TC, go ahead.
Definitely yes. And the reason why I'm saying yes is because, first of all, Adam Peters assigned him to a one-year deal, probably around let's say 17.
I think he wants more than that. I'm sure he's looking for more than that.
Yeah, I'm quite sure he's probably looking for more than that. But we got to see what Adam Peters. Adam Peters. You're talking about Adam Peters. Adam Peters is not trying to pay crazy money, so that's already there. So
not
Adam
to this
Peters
position based on what their research department says about aging wide receivers, no doubt.
Right, I got that. Adam Peters ain't gonna go that far. So what I'm saying is it definitely being a yes, because not only, here's the thing, he is gonna bring excitement and a sense of urgency, and to make other defenses that we play, because we got a tough schedule playing defenses this year. At least 11 games on the schedule of opponents with top 10 or top 12 defenses. So with Diggs and Terry in there, that's going to bring some fear to the opponents. That's the main thing, I believe, what we lacking right now. De'Ami Brown is the one going to go deep, yes, but that fear, we don't have that fear in the receiving capability. That's it. And also I mentioned that Diggs was with Houston, and he was like the second or the third receiver.
I know he was. Oh, right. I know. So okay, so, by the way, I missed that year. Obviously, he was a number 2 with Nico Collins. Okay, right. So, yes. And by the way, I looked this up. I looked this up, during one of the breaks. He was trending for another, 100 catch, 1,200 yard season before when he got hurt in week 8. So he is not far removed from some. Actually, it was not a 1,200 yard season. My fault. He was trending towards basically like an 1,100 yard season and right around a 100 catch season. Excellent for a 31-year-old receiver, where, by the way, Nico Collins is an absolute stud and star opposite him.
Right.
When he got hurt. Yeah. And last year, 85 catches, very low drop rate per usual, 1,013 yards, 4 touchdowns. What's come down for him is his yards per catch. And part of that is he's not the same deep threat that he used to be. You just have to recognize that. He's not the same deep threat that he was in his early days in Buffalo or his days in Minnesota. Thank you for the call, TC. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Stephon Diggs, yes or no, why or why not? We've not gotten a no yet. Let's go to Anthony in D.C. Anthony, go ahead.
Kevin, quick aside. So what are you really saying about your wife in that Foley read?
What'd you say?
What are you really saying about your wife in that Foley read?
Oh, Foley mechanical. All right, Anthony. It was script. It was script. Okay, it was script. Let me just tell you real quickly though. My wife knows a lot more about HVAC than I do, and the truth is, she was the one that said Foley Mechanical. Absolutely, we're doing the work with them. They know what they're doing. She's a real estate agent. She knows a lot about homes and a lot about the inner workings of a home, much more than I do. Okay, can we focus on football, Anthony?
You know the line that I'm referring to, though.
Yes, I do.
That's saying something.
Yeah, that's saying something.
All right.
Yes.
So,
I think I just said something. So go ahead.
Yeah, as far as these go, of course, it's a yes, and the reason why is you don't really want Keenan Allen because supposedly you have your big bodies in Chig and Traylon Burks. And you don't want Noah Brown again because you can't rely on him. So, and Brandon Ayuk isn't even in the conversation. So who does that leave? Nobody. So basically, it's Diggs or nothing. And that's why it's a automatic yes.
Yeah.
And, unless there's somebody out there that I'm missing.
No, not really. I think that, Jeremy Fowler pointed out there are late camp cut possibilities. Tillman's a big target, Cedric Tillman from Cleveland. Demario Douglas is much more of an inside guy and a smaller guy. He mentioned those two names. I do want to repeat because a listener to this show who coached Stephon Diggs in high school and is I'm a big fan of, said that, Trey Burks out with foot soreness, something to keep in mind. And maybe that's why the Diggs conversation is increasing. Yeah, I mean, they like Treylon Burks. They didn't re-sign him because they didn't think that he could play or that they didn't think he could develop into a big outside number 2 possibility, certainly to compete with.
Right.
Anthony, you didn't say this, the previous caller did, but there would be a level of excitement. Not that they're looking for that, but there'd be some buzz if Stephon Diggs were on the roster. In fact, think about all of the new additions, okay? All the defensive new additions, the offensive new additions. Would there be a more anticipated debut of a new player for our team that would be more anticipated than Stephon Diggs? Maybe Sonny Styles? No. Maybe?
Maybe Sonny Styles. But as the previous caller said, who other than Terry, who's going to put some fear on the field against the defenses?
Right.
Currently, nobody else.
Fortunately,
on
our quarterback
the
does, but yeah.
Well, I'm talking receiver wise.
I know.
So Diggs would definitely. How much fear I don't know, but he would strike some fear, and we need that opposite Terry. So
I'll tell you, Stephon is more of a possession receiver here of late than he used to be, but he's still a damn good receiver. All right. Thank you, Anthony. As always. Everybody on hold, stay there. We'll do this for another segment. Dan Quinn spoke earlier. There's something that he said that I want to play for you before the end of the show. And the Wizards are reportedly interested in DeMar DeRozan. We'll get to that as well. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. Yes or no on Stephon Diggs? Why or why not? I'm a yes. Max is a yes. Want to hear from you as well. We've not gotten a no yet. I'm right about that. We've not gotten one no. Let's go to our guy Ivan in Florida, who has stepped off the golf course to call us. Appreciate you doing that. But go ahead. What do you got?
Hey, what's up, Kevin? Hey,
how are you?
Hey, before I get off track, before I get on track, this young guy, Jackson Hoyven, Kevin, he looks he looks the part, man. He looks pretty good.
Wait, say that again. The kid. The kid that just won. Yeah, no doubt. Obviously, people have been talking about him coming for a while, but that was impressive.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Yes on Stephon Diggs. 2 months ago, yes on Stephon Diggs. The only question mark is Adam Peters. You have to make every attempt to make this team better, and especially like we talked about coming out of the gate. You got a tough schedule coming out of the gate. You have to make this team better, and you have to wonder if Adam Peters is all in on taking advantage of Jaden Daniels' rookie contract. This is the year you roll the dice. You spend the money that you got left. It's not his money. Spend the money. Get this guy in. I told you before, if you have Diggs, you potentially have a top 5 receiving core and a borderline top 10 elite offense. And Kevin, just to revisit your
did you say top 10 receiving core or top 5 receiving core? Because it's not either. It's not that with Stephon Diggs. No, it isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. You got your tight end in there. You got the Jaden Daniels, who's the best quarterback, and then you got Terry. I think
you just said receiving core. You just said receiving core. No, it would not be. It would not be anywhere near a top 10 receiving core with the addition of Diggs. It'd be a lot better than it is, but there are some really good receiving cores. Like your top 5, just so you know, the groups you'd be comparing it to: Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, Pickens and Lamb, Addison and Jefferson, Nakua and Devontae,
Kevin.
Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown and company in Detroit. JSN and Rashid Shaheed and Cooper Kupp. I mean, Kevin, come on, man. It's not top 5.
Kevin, I'll take it easily, Kevin,
okay.
with Stephon Diggs.
31-year-old and a 32-year-old, none of whom can burn it deep.
The bounce back from your quarterback, Kevin. I'll take it in a minute. Hey, to revisit your first segment, I think you have to have a defensive guy to be in your top, to be your third best player, which will mean that'll mean that you're going to be competitive on both sides of the ball. So strategically, I would take.
You mean you'd like the third best player to be a defensive player? You'd like one of your 3 best players to be a defensive player. It doesn't mean that it has to be. It wasn't for me.
Well, I would take that. I would take Oweh or Sonny Styles to be your second or third best defensive player. So, Kevin, you're going to have your defense is going to be running all over the field, Kevin. I mean, you're going to have an exciting defense. You're going to be drooling over your defense. And I got a shocker for you, Kevin. I maybe one up Mark a little bit. I've got us 5-0 out of the gate, even with that tough schedule. If we had Stephon Diggs. And the reason why is you got the Eagles with the issues with A.J. Brown. You got a perfect storm, I think. You got Dallas as Dallas, and then you got the Seahawks without Kenneth Walker. I've got us 5-0 coming out the gate, and I've got us 10 to 12 wins, Kevin. 10 to 12, and I'm drooling on this defense all over the ball. Adam Peters, get busy.
Thank you. Our good friend Ivan in Florida. He'll go back to his. I don't know if he's playing 18 or 36 today, but he plays a lot of golf. He's retired. He's of means, and why shouldn't he? Bay, go ahead. Yes or no on Diggs? Why or why not?
Man, thanks again for taking my call, Max and Kev. I am not in on Stephon Diggs, and here's why.
All right, you're
just
the first
for the
one.
name of all those duos that you named, Portland Sutton and Jalen Waddle. He's not comparable. Right. He's not a better two than them. The one in Dallas, he's not better than any of those people.
What about Michael Pittman and DK Metcalf?
I'm not so high on DK Metcalf.
They're not up on the list.
I just want to throw it out
I
there.
just ripped off. Yeah. Didn't I rip off six?
Yeah, you did rip off
least?
six of the top six.
And you just gave the Denver with the addition of Waddle to Sutton. Yes, I would say that's more formidable than a Terry Diggs. I would love Terry and Diggs together, and certainly it would be a massive improvement, at least based on what we know at this point. But it's not a top 5 receiving duo in the NFL. No, it isn't.
No. I think Diggs is a number 3 wide receiver.
By the way,
AJ
Brown and Dobbs in New England.
I forgot they have Dobbs.
That's another one. Yeah, that's another one. Again, like I said, he's talking about he's the best number 2 to a number 1, and I don't see it. I don't see it at least in the top 10 comparable teams. But I think Diggs is a good number 3. I do. Compared to what you're going to be dealing with him. And I said teams that are not looking at him because, number 1, he probably asking for too much. And number 2, they see where he fell off at versus where we do not see where he fell off at. So
and my guess on that, Bay, is that they have wanted, and the reason there would have been interest in Ayuk without the last month and a half is that Ayuk is a legitimate home run threat on the field.
Agreed.
And it's not what Diggs is anymore. I don't think he is. I think the league believes that he's not that anymore. What he is an outstanding possession receiver. And probably better than anything else they have right now on the roster that we know of. And to me, I'd want that because I think it would be an upgrade over what they have. Not to mention the experience and the badass competitor that he is on game days. You know how much Quinn loves that kind of dude. So I would say yes to him. Let's go to Bones. Bones, go ahead. Yes or no on Stefon Diggs with a reason either way.
Oh, my God. Thank you, Kevin and Max, for taking my call, man. Bones. I heard my 2 nephews on there today, Paulie and G from the shop.
Yeah.
And your main man, Mark from Largo, and Anthony. Boy, you got some characters calling in here, man. Then Ivan, too. But look, check it out.
Yeah.
I would take Stefon Diggs, man, because I think him and Terry both complement each other. And then they also, man, add some separation for a guy like De'Ami Brown, Treylon Burks. And then you got the tight end Chig on the tight end spot. And then also, man, we get the opportunity, man, of a possibility of Cardi B coming into the building at Northwest Stadium, man.
Let's hope
and
they're getting along.
To see Cardi B, man.
Yeah.
Man, we trying to get Cardi B up in the stadium, up Northwest Stadium, man. So, yeah, man, Adam Peters need to go ahead and do what he got to do. Bring Stefon Diggs here, man. You understand? I don't care. I ain't trying to be the top 5 wide receivers in the league and all that. I just want us to be competitive and a threat. With Stefon Diggs, man, we are going to definitely be competitive, and coaches that coaches defense against us, they're going to have to pay attention to this. Because we got some weapons, man, and Stefon Diggs going to add to the equation.
We don't have a lot of weapons right now. Diggs would certainly be a help. Thanks, Bones. Buddy of mine just said, I don't care who the number 2 is, but if Malik Neighbors is healthy, their duo would be better than whatever we have just because of Malik Neighbors. By the way, he's healthy apparently, which is good news for them.
Healthy enough to practice.
Yeah, but I was watching this morning. Who was the reporter? Was it what's his face on the Greenberg show? Basically said there's real optimism about Malik Neighbors being ready for the opener against the Cowboys. And remember a few weeks ago, like after that thing that he was involved in, that charity softball game he was involved in, it looked like he couldn't run. People were saying he may miss the first half of the season. So,
how quickly it changes.
It's changed for sure. I would love Diggs to be added to the group. I'm intrigued with what the scheme will do for guys like, look, 2 years ago, the bottom line is there were a bunch of guys that nobody thought, other than Terry, were going to be a great supporting cast. De'Ami had moments, especially late in the season. Olamide Zaccheaus had moments for sure throughout the season. Then Jamison Crowder came in, had moments. Noah Brown had moments before getting hurt. And it was sort of by committee, and you look at what they have now, and there are a lot of people that have said to me, look, worst case is you have what you had in 2024 and Jaden stays healthy and they elevate it and they're still a very high level offense. That's in play. That is definitely in play. Let me just say this. I know that some people didn't love Zach Ertz's ability after the catch. I get it on him. But man, was he one big target who caught everything, especially on condensed fields, on third down, red zone. Chig can be that, no doubt. He's not as big as Ertz. Chig is probably 3 inches shorter than Ertz. Ertz was 6'5", 6'6", right? Chig's like 6'3". I like Chig. Chig's going to get open, and Chig's going to be better with the ball in his hands than Ertz was. But you also have Terry McLaurin, who's 2 years older than he was 2 years ago. Noah Brown was a 6'2" target who got open, who Jaden really liked. Diami obviously came on late. But, I'm looking forward to seeing if they don't add anybody. I'm a Van Jefferson believer that he is a pro's pro, that this is a guy that will be where he's supposed to be and catch everything that's thrown in his direction. Burks, we'll see. Diami, Luke, Jalen Lane, and of course the rookie, Antonio Williams. I mean, that's the big hope here, is that Antonio Williams turns out to be the number 2 wide receiver target and be a dynamic one. I think Chig will end up being the second most targeted pass catcher in the system after Terry, but it would be the best thing for the team would be if Antonio Williams was third on that list. All right. Dan Quinn spoke before practice today. We'll play some of that. Also wanted to, discuss some of the reports out there that the Wizards are looking for a 6-time All-NBA, All-Star shooting guard. That's coming up shortly. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. So the news today, day 2 training camp, Nick Allegretti suffered a strained calf in yesterday's practice, Dan Quinn talked about. However, does not appear to be serious, not a lot of concern. Treylon Burks out today with foot soreness. But again, Dan Quinn saying the team's not overly concerned with either injury. That according to our show's team beat reporter, Ben Standing. So Quinn talked before the practice today. There were a couple of sound bites that I thought were interesting. I haven't heard them. Max has listened to them and picked them out. I want to hear what he said about Chig Okonkwo. This was Quinn earlier on their new tight end.
Hey, Dan, with regards to Chig, I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts were at the time you were presented, hey, maybe we can bring this guy in. And now that you've had him for a few months, what have you learned or what's maybe changed in that? Thank you.
I loved the urgency and the competitiveness. That's what jumped out on tape, Ben. So he's not the biggest guy, but beating him to the punch and having the quickness to go. So I thought that was, one of the things that I really liked about his game. If we add those type of players, what generally happens, that manifests itself into like absolutely battling for it. And so to see him in a system in a tight end from play actions and down the field throws, we thought that would be like a good mesh for him. It was also what he was looking for too. So when we showed clips from there and showed the clips of what we were going to do, we intercut them together to like paint a clear picture. I think anytime a person's a free agent coming here, you want to say like, this is how we plan on featuring you here. So they have a clear vision, say, you know what, this is a good spot for me, like relative to the dollars and cents to say, okay, this is why I should choose, this place.
What did you present him to say, hey, this is, we saw how you were maybe use here. We can do something different here.
Yeah, the long play action passing, over routes, pylon routes, things that were down the field, and even some, crossing routes that are catch and run to use some of his speed. So we just wanted to, highlight, hey, this is what we think you can do.
Yeah, I mean, so a couple of things about Chig Okonkwo. What Quinn emphasized there, by the way, play action. That more than anything else, you may not see it a lot, in a preseason game. This team is going to be, mark my words, top 10 in the league, maybe higher than that, in play action pass attempts. They've been in the bottom 3 or 4 for the last 2 years. And Chig is definitely one of those guys on over routes, on play action, deeper shots, is going to be a weapon. He can really run. He's not the same as Ertz. Ertz is a big target, good route runner, always where he needs to be. A guy that can contested catch because of his size, real crafty in his ability to block out and get position. Chig isn't that. Chig is a very good route runner. Chig is explosive and strong. Chig's excellent after the catch. Chig is really good at making people miss after he's made a catch, but then also running somebody over. I think this is going to be the breakout year for Chig Okonkwo. I think he's been on the verge, but just hasn't been on a good team, hasn't been on a good offensive football team, clearly, and hasn't had a good quarterback. I mean, I think Cam Ward's going to eventually develop into a good quarterback. But on that team last year, there wasn't a whole hell of a lot, in terms of options. By the way, Van Jefferson was on that team for a few games. Calvin Ridley was on the team with Cam Ward. But Chig was the leading pass catcher. He had 56 catches. And I'm sure for Cam Ward, he became a guy where it's like, at least if I get him the ball, he's going to make something happen. And I think we'll see a lot of that out of the offense, in addition to the play action, early down, deep shots for Chig. I'm excited about Chig Okonkwo. We had somebody on that was not super impressed with that signing, and I'm forgetting who it was at this point during the offseason. I like that signing. I think it's going to pay off. This was Quinn on the 2 centers that are not projected to start. We played for you the sound yesterday about how absolutely convinced Adam Peters and Dan Quinn are about Nick Allegretti. Well, Nick Allegretti, calf strain, might miss some time. They're not serious. But the only other two centers they have in camp are the sixth round pick, Matt Gulbin from Michigan State, and then Julian Good-Jones, who's been on the roster for a bit. This was Quinn talking about the depth at center.
With Matt and Julian now having to, basically step in with Nick being out, do you guys change anything as far as preparation for practice, or just keep it going?
Nope, we just keep it going. And those are the ones you move it around some. But even within a practice, there's going to be times where you'll see a guy maybe go up to the first group to go. It's just to what are you going to do? And so every player deserves his chance to go perform. And so as coaches, hey, I want to see this third player with the first group. What's he going to do? How's he going to react? All right, I'm in the huddle now with Jaden, and here I am. So I wanted to find that out. But because we're putting it all in together, no change of that. Just we have about 4 guys that can snap and go through that. And so we rotate that through.
There you go. They need Nick Allegretti healthy, and they're going to need him healthy all season long, is my guess. They believe in him. Doesn't mean they'll be right. We'll see how it works out. And then lastly, the other soundbite that Max wanted to play and picked out was just on upgrades in personnel and scheme defensively, hopefully resulting in more takeaways. Here's what Quinn said.
Hey, Dan, only 10 forced turnovers last year, which I'm sure is a number you didn't like. What do you think the upgrades and the changes in terms of personnel and scheme are going to help get that number up to a number you'd like?
Yeah, it's everything for us. And so it's the way that we do it. You might have saw it even at the beginning of practice of, every skill player onto the jugs, the intentionality of it. And so it's a big part of it. It's honestly it's our philosophy, the way we take care of it on offense, great decisions. And that's one of Jaden's superpowers, his accuracy of putting the ball in the right location, in the zone, in demand to go. And so defensively, it's the mindset to go after it. So we do things like how many times are we taking shots at the ball, having opportunities and converting on those chances. So it's something that's an everyday discussion for us.
10 takeaways in 2025. Second worst in the league. Only the Jets were worse. The Jets were horrendous with a defensive head coach with 4 takeaways on the season. 10 takeaways in 17 games. And by the way, the year before in 2024, so they were 31st last year, they were 26th in the league in takeaways in 2024 with just 17. That has to change, man. You want to help Jaden. You want to help the offense. You've got to be better on defense. I totally agree and buy into their emphasis on flooding the room with defensive players that are new and more capable and younger and faster and all of those things. That is just as important in the helping of the football team and of the offense as would have been, Carnell Tate at 7 or Alec Pierce in free agency. I mean, it's almost impossible to compete for a playoff spot with 10 takeaways on the season. Now, the overall differential wasn't great either. It was second worst in the league at -13. They had 23 overall giveaways in the league. Which was, tied for 25th in the most giveaways. But you got to get more takeaways. This is what Quinn did so well in Dallas. They were a takeaway machine. He has not been able to figure that out yet. Now, last year in the league, Minnesota, a part of a team that Durante Jones was a coach on, 21 takeaways, more than 2 times what Washington had, tied for 8th best in the league. But look at the takeaway numbers last year and how they translate to really good seasons. Chicago was number 1 in the league with 33 takeaways. Jacksonville was 2. Houston was 3. Pittsburgh was 4. The Rams 5. Seattle 6. The top 6 takeaway teams in the league were in the postseason. Then it was Atlanta at 7. Okay, tied for 7th. Now, let me just say, the Falcons had, lots of injuries on offense. Defensively, they got after it. They did not make the playoffs. They missed the playoffs by 1 game. They were 1 game away from winning the division. But then here's the next group of teams: the Chargers, the Buccaneers, and the Panthers. Did I just give you the top 10? Out of the top 10 takeaway teams in the league last year, 9 of them were playoff teams. 9 of them. So you got to get better on that. With Jaden Daniels healthy and upright for 17 games, no matter what you put around him, if you get off the field more than you did in 25, with, by the way, just third down stops, let's start there. Third down stops would be a nice thing to have for sure, defensively. And if you get off the field with it soon enough to get good field position, and then if you turn people over and shorten the field or even score, imagine what they would have been in 24 with that kind of with a good takeaway defense. Imagine what they would have been last year with a better takeaway difference. They wouldn't have won 5 games. Now, without Jaden, they weren't going to win more than 6 or 7. But you got to become a better takeaway team. You got to be a better team on third down. And they attempted to change their defensive production with all of those new players. So I had this that I wanted to mention. There's a lot of reporting out there that Washington's one of 5 or 6 teams interested in signing DeMar DeRozan. DeRozan is 36 years old. His season last year was statistically one of the worst of his career. He still averaged over 18 points. He's getting up there a little bit. I have always been a DeMar DeRozan fan just because of the style of play. DeMar DeRozan's been one of the most patient, get to his spot scorers throughout his career. 6-time All-Star. DeRozan, during the course of his career, obviously with, Toronto during those years, in a backcourt with Kyle Lowry. Now, he was not on the championship team in Toronto because he was part of the deal to bring Kawhi to Toronto, but just have always loved him. A true methodical scoring machine. His personal story, too, if you ever want to look something up that's interesting about a player. DeMar DeRozan had major depression issues at various points early in his career, overcame those, a lot of anxiety issues. Kevin Love kind of stuff. Kevin Love kind of stuff. Always been a great player. Statistically, last year in Sacramento, the lowest point total on average since his 3rd season in the league. But that'd be interesting. Would he step in and start? Probably not. At this point in his career, he's probably looking to be a solid veteran coming off the bench to perform, as a scorer. I don't think I have a problem with what the Wizards are thinking about in terms of this year. They want more veteran leadership. They want more veteran ability because they want to be in games that matter. That's the best developmental environment for all of their young players. Going through another season where the games don't really matter, the final scores don't matter, the standings don't matter, that's not a true judge of your young players. I think sometimes the regular season just in general isn't a true judge of NBA players. You got to get to the games where both teams are rested at the same level, playing for high stakes in the playoffs to really evaluate a player. But what the Wizards have been doing, I've been for it, but it's not been an environment in which you can say, wow, I really know a lot or enough about Trey Johnson or Alex Sarr or Bilal Coulibaly or Keyshawn George or any of them. Got to see it in a season where they're trying to win. And I think that's what they're going to try to do this upcoming season. This will be truly one of the most anticipated Wizards seasons in a long time. And it's not because they're a contender. at all, it's because they're actually going to try to win. And if their best players, including Anthony Davis, most notably Anthony Davis, if he plays and plays healthy, they're a team that actually could be a playoff team in the East, a loaded East. Thanks to all of you who called. We're going to get to that Tony Romo thing. I didn't see it until last night, actually.
Really?
I meant to talk about that. He was definitely hammered, right?
Chris Russell and I got into a debate about that, and it turns out I was wrong, and there was an open container in the car, allegedly.
Well, what? Oh, you didn't think he was hammered?
He didn't appear to be in the video, but we'll talk about it later.
He appeared to be impacted. Maybe not, annihilated, inebriated, but he was definitely overserved at, to a certain degree. He was on the golf course.
Exactly.
All right. We're done for the day. Chris is next.